Welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting for August 26, 2015. We'll take a moment of silence and then do the Pledge of Allegiance. The moment of silence tonight will be dedicated to the Army parachutist that died in Chicago. His name was Corey Hood. He was 32 years old. He was a Cincinnati native and graduate of Lakota West High School. He actually served in the Army for a while, and he logged more than 500 free fall jumps, 75 military static line jumps, awarded 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Meritorious Service Medals, 5 Army Commendation Medals, 5 Army Achievement Medals, a Master Parachutist Badge, a Pathfinder Badge, and an Air Assault Badge, and a Combat Action Badge. So why don't we take a moment of silence for him? He lost his life on August 17th for Corey Hood. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with motions for consideration. Mr. Luby.
Motion 2015-133, approve the minutes of the regular Board of Trustee meeting held on August 12, 2015, and dispense with the reading.
I move motion 2015-133 to approve the minutes.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2015-134, approve bills for payment.
I move motion 2015-134 to approve the bills for payment.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2015-135, approve the payment of overtime for pay period ending August 18, 2015.
I move motion 2015-135 to approve the payment of overtime.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2015-136, accept the voluntary resignation of Robert D. Williams II, part-time firefighter paramedic, effective August 30th, 2015.
I move motion 2015-136 to accept the voluntary resignation of Robert D. Williams II.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2015-137, accept the voluntary medical separation of Daniel J. Ramstetter, police officer, effective September 1st, 2015.
I move motion 2015-137 to accept the voluntary medical separation of Daniel J. Ramstetter, police officer.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2015-138, approve the cancellation of the Board of Trustees regular meetings on Wednesday, November 11th, 2015, and Wednesday, November 25th, 2015, and approve the rescheduled dates of Monday, November 9th, 2015, and Monday, November 23rd, 2015, both at the regular time of 6 p.m. at the Township Administration Building for the purposes of conducting regular Board of Trustee business.
I move motion 2015-138 to approve the change of trustee meetings for the month of November 2015 as noted.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion 2015-139, approve the scheduling of the 2016 budget meetings on Monday, November 9th, 2015, and Tuesday, November 10th, 2015, both at 5 p.m. at the Township Administration Building for the purpose of reviewing and discussing the proposed 2016 budget.
I move motion 2015-139 to approve the scheduling of the 2016 budget meetings as noted.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion passes. We do have a presentation tonight. We're going to have an update on the strategic redevelopment plan, and I'll let Mr. Landrum begin.
Thank you. Yes, this is our third site visit that we've had by Stantec. We had the kickoff, and then we had a June engagement, and now August. Here we are. This is as Steve Kearney with Stantec. He is our project manager and senior planner. We have been working on this and having meetings and different things. This is to give the board an update, also to give the public an update that will not be able to attend tomorrow night's meeting from 6 to 8 at the Lodge. 6 to 8 at the Lodge, Glenn Carter Lodge in Delhi Park. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we will be given another presentation, but it's going to be a little bit more of an open forum. Some of the slides you will see tonight will be on huge poster-size boards blown up for those to not only be able to view and read, but also provide feedback on. But tonight we are giving the Board of Trustees an official update, and we hope also we'll be able to shorten this and give it, able to put it out to video for those that cannot attend tomorrow night to view. So tonight I'll turn it over to Steve, and he'll give us an update on where we are and what's next.
Thank you. And of course, I realize the date today. Presentation is set up for the 27th, which is the public event, and then quickly converted on the cover for your benefit. So, Pete, we need to make that change. Next slide. Again, Pete really has given an introduction. Really what I want to do tonight, as with each of these steps, is to give an update of where we've been quickly, what we've been working on, and then where we are heading next. And really what I'll focus on tonight is just the results of the placemaking workshop that occurred after the last time I was here, and then the work on developing the catalytic site developments, how we're thinking about the numbers, how we're testing those numbers with our market and development economic team consultant members. And then I will also go into the development of this 20-year vision for the corridor, and I'll go in that step by step through phases and explain how we intend to and hope to see this development occur. So with that, next slide, and click once. We actually, amazingly on this project are absolutely on time, if anything, a few days possibly ahead of the schedule we had laid out. But I always know with all of these, it takes time to go through draft revisions before any planning document can be adopted. So it's good news that we are, where we are right now. Next slide. Again, just to review what we've done so far, we had the kickoff event, which was also a visioning event to get communities joined and individual visions. We've met with more than 25 stakeholders. We're continuing to this day with development specialists that we're meeting today and tomorrow. And we had the placemaking workshop, 3 days of developing a framework, which I'll review. And now we're really getting into presenting the draft elements of the plan. Next slide. Again, just to give you a sense of who we've been meeting with, you've seen this slide before, but we're trying to get as wide range of experts as we can to really make sure that what we're developing is realistic. I won't read these. You have them in front of you. Pete printed these out, and these will be presented on large boards tomorrow. But the reason why I included these here is, we developed the vision on the first night of the last placemaking session. This was refined by comments from the community and has been revised from the last one that you saw, so it is worth reading. And next slide, which is really the principles that we talk about. Again, these are more detail about them. Simply to support community, build economic value, improve quality of life, enhance connectivity, and be sustainable. And again, why it's important to repeat these is as new development occurs, as we encourage it to occur, and as developers come to the township, these are the principles by which we can judge the quality of the project they are pursuing. And so these become important adopted principles of this plan. Again, what we did, and this is perfectly fine, you can go straight to the next one, Pete. As we worked with the community, we started to identify the sites that we felt had the most likely opportunity for change. This was part of and a result of the existing conditions analysis of land values, quality of properties, the buildings, physical quality of the buildings, use, acreage, how large they were, meaning it would be more likely to negotiate with one single property owner versus working with multiple property owners, and also trying to identify what really is driving the traffic on the corridor. And again, Kroger was an obvious. The park, from what the community had told us, was a less obvious but clearly an important one. And so Site A really became, probably the number one priority, that whole general area. Site B, the Remke Plaza, came up second from the sheer size. And then Site C, the Del Fair, actually go right to the next one, probably in many ways would have been considered the most important site to look at from its proximity to the Mount as a gateway location. But again, considering where the property is at and with new owners who we will be meeting tomorrow, we really began to look at the other sites around Kroger to create a denser opportunity. So then we left you with this was what we presented to the community in June. On the next slide, we also basically let the community know what we were doing next. The residential report has been completed and finalized, and I encourage, again, you've had copies of it, but to review the final report, just a quick summary, I'll get into those findings a bit. The existing conditions done, the urban design framework, which is what I'm presenting, we have spent a lot of time on this based on the market assessment. I just want to state right now, this is what we're doing. This is why we come back every time to the community, because everything we've done needs to be vetted, approved, commented on, and additional input added by the community, and that's what we'll be doing, really focused on tomorrow night. Identify the 3 catalytic developments. We have already gotten into the preliminary finance economic development numbers. We're looking at the Remke site and the hardware site, which I'll get into. We are reserving the 3rd. Again, Delfair is an obvious choice, but we want to make sure as we spend time and money on these, preliminary economic and pro formas, we want to make sure we're doing it for the most likely properties that can be redeveloped. So we are holding until after comment from the community, from you yourselves, and from developers to make that final decision, and then we'll complete this part of the effort. Again, our preliminary findings have been presented. I will give you a top-level highlight of that. We have the draft memos, if you're interested, that we can get to you. And we've already prepared an outline for the plan document, and we have already developed several of the chapters which have been reviewed internally and will be reviewed by the Oversight Committee when we meet tomorrow. So, next slide. Just again, as we always talk about developing a plan based on the market opportunities, we really know a pharmacy is a strong candidate in this corridor. Our market analysis supports it. Interest has been expressed. Small store retail, again, you're talking about small boutiques, nails, even dollar stores fall within this. It's a wide range. We'd like to get it closer to more of the neighborhood retail, services retail that we'd like to see within these buildings. But that is the opportunity. 10 to 20,000 service-related office, real estate, bank that comes in. That actually will add into the retail. It fits out within the same first floor location. And then again, which was a nice surprise to us, as we mentioned, is the 40 to 60,000 square feet medical office. We are talking with the hospitals. They're expressing interest. These are new market opportunities that we think can happen and build the chances of stronger redevelopment. Next slide. So again, this is important. We're looking at, 5 years, we have 350 units of housing. You're about to see where we've put that. 10 years, we feel comfortable at 600. We'll see the larger plan. If we succeed and get to 600 in 10 years, as I've said before, you will start a new plan to make sure you hit the next 10 years just as strongly. Next slide. When you look and add all of this up in terms of a market opportunity or development potential, they're not small numbers, and it's always important to look at this. This is, again, actually went to 500. I was a little more conservative on this number. And this is a 10-year that we're looking at, 500 units of housing, and these retail numbers, office, the opportunity is really close to upwards of $100 million in development potential, which again is strong. And over the course of 10 years, it's not the most giant number, but it's a very good number, frankly, for the opportunity. Next slide. So what I want to do, and I will try to do it from here as I point, right now this is what, where we start from the beginning. We have big numbers like the potential, and what we want to do now is come up with a strategy for how that potential may be realized, and we look at the phasing. Now, I say right from the beginning, development opportunities could occur within, and that would be great from our standpoint. Delfair Plaza could be the first one out. We would think that would be a great success. Point being is we would want to make sure that it's hitting the goals of this plan, meaning the principles, and having a physical design that supports the environment that we are working towards on this effort. So we really looked at 0 to 5 years, a couple of locations. Blue is medical office right up next to the Kroger. Reason for that location is a possible opportunity for some shared parking, and also just again, pulling in, services right next to Kroger where traffic is being driven. The hardware store on the north of the Pike and to the right, again, we're looking at mixed residential with first floor retail right up along the Pike. The orange in the back are just multifamily rental apartments, and the yellow in the background is townhouses. And I want to just spend some time on this. We had a different version of this at the June event, which created more of an internal main street. That forced the parking to the back, to the north, up against the single-family residential homes. And a neighbor, one or actually maybe two, made the concern that would be a negative impact on their properties with the light from the parking. And it's a good example. Ultimately we went back, and the fact of the matter is you would likely want to separate out the parcels in the townhouse into a separate development because you'll have a different developer. And we worked this so that the scale of the development steps down to the single family, and it is townhouse backing up against the residential. So again, there is a strong neighborhood buffer and an environment that we think actually works much better. So we didn't get a great idea that we had in the beginning, but we think we have a stronger design and a more likely opportunity for redevelopment here. The Waffle House, it's not labeled, but it is right. We have that is not part of our development. We are trying very hard to make sure that new opportunities are supported. Again, if you look at the Remke Plaza below, all the retail, the proposed Arby's, we're excited for that. We want that to continue. The fact that you're having investment with new restaurants, even if they're moving from one to the next, but the Chipotle, again, that's worth noting and supporting. So we're pulling behind. We actually met with the owner of the Remke Plaza today, just as an example. And again, what we were very excited by is, when we talked about potential, the Pink is an entertainment complex. Movie theater, he thought there's probably potential. He also, which should be noted, and I'll mention tomorrow, he felt there probably was a stronger potential if you could cluster some national clothing stores, Kohl's, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, with a Home Goods. They're owned by the same company, so you could probably get that to happen. And he was much more optimistic of that opportunity, which is exciting. I'll get him in touch with our market analyst just to further discuss that, because that would likely change a development pattern, but it would create one of the goals that the community expressed fully. And so that would be, we'd change. Let's just put it that way. And in fact, we will note that in the plan that, if that were to express itself, that should be given full consideration within the design elements that we are proposing, within reason to what a store of that size would require. And just before I finish, again, the pharmacy at Greenwell, creating a new gateway, this is just, it's traditional. We're trying to get it up against the Pike. We're being as creative as we think a pharmacy would realistically let us, and that is an important component to this. We're trying very hard to fit development in a way that will likely work, and that's where, again, creating that edge on Delhi we think would be more effective. Next slide. So now we start talking about if we succeed in two developments of really building out along the northern and heading west towards Kroger and along the Pike. Restaurants still we envision, particularly new Dunkin' Donuts, Arby's, they're not changing even within 10 years, possibly. We want to be realistic about that. But some of these other restaurants that are there, they may be interested, if values are increasing and they can change from a single-use first floor, single-story restaurant into a mixed-use building, increase the value, still have their restaurant within their same location. That is the goal that we're really trying to achieve. Once you get past 10 years, again, now we're really talking about the vision, and this is the environment we're trying to create, which is a more residential, clearly an emphasis on residential within what was always a commercial corridor to create more of an 18-hour environment. And, but again, if you look at this, when you step back on these newer developments, it really is fully residential. We're not bringing the retail into the back because, again, even in this vision, we know how much retail is realistic. We will put it up along Delhi Pike to create the environment that as you drive, you still see retail along the street with residential above. And again, there are still a few existing restaurants. Go to year 20 just to fully build it out. And again, even within 20 years, we know some of these restaurants won't change, and we're okay with that. And this, at this point, is very much a concept. If you were to count how many residential units are in here, it comes between 800 and 900. There is more townhouse within this because, again, we want to make sure that we can put the density, the vibrancy in the right places, and yet still create an all-around physical environment that is attractive and appealing to a diverse group of individuals who are looking for different housing choices. Next slide. And so we go into, again, the catalytic site development, just take a step back. We did look at all of them. As I mentioned, Remke and hardware are the two, that we have identified and we're spending time on. Next slide. I want to go through this. We went through all the square footage of each of these just so you know where the homework we're doing. Next slide. And I want to get, and this is the hardware store, which I have spoken to. We're looking at 125 multifamily units, 28 units of residential townhouses. Again, if you look at these images, these are more precedents that we're thinking of in terms of style. Next slide. And this is a specific drawing that we've done for this site. Bottom left is the actual hardware vacant store. The graphic, the sketch that we have done is actually this neighborhood that would be on the back of this, where you've got multifamily, rental, ownership, townhouses on the right, and really creating a neighborhood, a street, a walkable street right behind what would be your restaurants up on Delhi Pike. So this is, and again, important part of this, it's the quality of the building is important to us. Next slide. And this is the Remke, where we were looking at 230 units, 18 units of housing. This builds out what our residential market assessment said we could do. And then entertainment's about 26,000. That actually might be higher if we could get a larger cinema in here. Next slide. And just click one more time. This is what we're doing right now. So we're running the numbers as if we're developers and seeing if we, as developers, would be interested in pursuing these projects. And it's important to note that just on a dry run and first look at it, we're not hitting the return on investment that a developer would seek, which would be about 8%. And we're hitting, when we punch in all the numbers, we're hitting about 6%. We're giving the land value $200,000 an acre, which might be a little bit high. We're still trying to figure out what the right price is per acre, and they always vary a little bit. But point being, this isn't a surprise to us. This is a good example of why often development doesn't occur, because at first glance, at first look, it's too risky. And what we're continuing to do and what we're working on right now, and Sarah's working on, is trying to figure out how we can recrunch these numbers, how the TIF might be an opportunity to create incentives that will help make this difference of 2%. We can change that, and that is something to keep an eye on, and we'll have ready for review probably within 2 weeks. So point being is, it is a gap. We need to solve for that gap in order to attract the developers. And from the township's perspective, you need to have all of this information. So when you go out and work with developers, property owners, and try to really sell and make this happen, you know what a developer is going to be looking for, and you have it at your ready. Which again, for the third catalytic site, we want to make sure we're doing it for the site that's most likely to see change in the next, the next 5 years. Next slide. Urban design, I won't read this, you have it in front of you, and for everyone who comes out tomorrow, these are on the boards, and this is the type of information we want feedback on. Again, this is what we're recommending. It's a fairly high level of urban design, talking about building up to the property lines or appropriate setbacks, creating the environment, a more walkable environment, forcing stronger landscape standards. We believe in these. We believe these are the physical design elements that make a better environment, a more attractive environment, and can attract the market, the market rate rentals and housing that we want, and can frankly become the downtown that, Delhi Township has, essentially asked us to develop, to create. With that said, it's always important to go through these, and as we're talking about having this plan adopted, we need to understand the right balance between creating the environment and making sure that we're still working within a realm that developers not only are comfortable with, but actually appreciate, because they know that if they're building to this level, their neighbors will be too. So again, this is, as we review the plan, these are important lists, bullet points that we should be reviewing together. And that's why we come back again for the community to present. Next slide. And again, we will continue, and the plan will call for higher quality materials, building materials. That, in fact, is one of the reasons why we have a gap. As Sarah, WZHA said, we can't. It was a comment that came up from the community in the beginning. All you'll end up doing is just building cheap housing, and that's absolutely not what we're planning to do. So we are going to this level, and we're showing how you can do it. But these elements will be as part of the plan, the quality of development. Next slide. And again, this is the quality of the streetscape that we are looking at. Bottom left, you've got a shot of Delhi Pike looking west. Good example, and I wanted to use this, is there's no real bike lane. You do have sidewalks, as we've always said, there's an opportunity, but we think there's more room here where you can actually get the bikes in on the north side of Delhi Pike. These still need to be tested fully with ODOT, Department of Transportation. But again, we're talking about an environment where we're reducing, if not removing, overhead utility lines, consolidating them. Burying them is very expensive. We are going to make that as a long-term recommendation, with the huge caveat that that many communities don't get there, and they're perfectly great. So it's just something we should know, as we're, everything that we recommend will have a different varying cost, and we need to address how that can be paid for to make this actually happen. Next slide. And again, what we mean and what we will be recommending in the plan. There's more details to this, but these are, creating new public spaces, so we have to figure out how to pay for those. Enhancing gateways so you know where you're entering a district. The streetscape amenities, from the benches to the proper trash receptacles to improved lighting going through. These are all recommendations of the plan, and right down to public art. And for each of these, we'll have several strategies, implementation steps. Next slide. And I will not go through these, certainly, and they're not meant to. Point being, part of the process for tomorrow night, and why we have a 2-hour open house, I will give a presentation in the beginning. If residents arrive late, I'll give the presentation again, absolutely, if anyone wants to. But what we will be doing with all of these boards is we will be walking residents through these implementation actions. Each resident, my guess will say, will have different concerns or get excited by different ideas, and we want them really to weigh in on how the plan is evolving. So this is their opportunity to shape the emerging elements of the plan itself. It will, based on the oversight committee, and of course working with Pete, Catherine, Tom, we will then create a final plan for review and adoption, approval and adoption. So this is, tomorrow night, it's important for the community to come out, because this is really their opportunity to weigh in on this plan as it has emerged, so we can incorporate that into the final plan document, which will be, fingers crossed, ready in September, and approval hopefully in October, November, and we'll be still on target. And with that, again, Pete, you can go through it, but there's just to the questions, and that's where we're moving along. So it's been an exciting project. There's still a lot of work to do. Last week was a lot of work, as Pete and Catherine know.
I guess my question goes really to kind of the next step, because I don't want to have a field of dreams where we build it and they come. I want to be able to have a marketing plan in place to let people be aware that this is happening and can plan their move. I mean, when we talk about this younger set, the millennials looking for rentals and so on, and I look around at what else is available, Delhi is void. I mean, we just do not have a lot of rental facilities. But on the other hand, I don't want to build something that becomes a ghost town. So I just want to know, I guess maybe this is in the next plan, not sure where it falls in, but how do we market to the people to get them to come? I don't want to, the Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. Well, I'd
Well,
like to know they're on their way.
yeah, and that is, again, when we talk about the first catalytic developments, what we do know, again, we're relying on experts, that's why we work with
Right.
them. We know that if you, were to build up to 350 market rate rental apartments, 975 square feet that rent for, and I don't remember Lori's number, the Zimmer Vogt number, that you actually have a market here who they would come into it. Now, with that said, what I think your other question is, how do you market it? And we believe strongly that you need to develop a product that is easily marketable, which means it's not just the apartment, it is the restaurants, which you already have. And you take components of this plan, you take the quality of the development, and that, it won't be part of this plan to go out and actively market it. It will be the job of the township to, on two ends, it will be a job for somebody to take this plan, to take these opportunities, to call, local developers, regional developers who might express interest, and also the national retailers, the Kohl's, et cetera, if you will, to really get Delhi on their radar. That is selling. You have to absolutely sell. That's why you have the plan. That's why you have the numbers that prove that you actually have an opportunity here, which is.
Well, we have some population set ready to go when you talk about the university students and graduate student, the need for housing. But looking beyond that, and you look at millennials going into the banks and what the rent is at the banks, plus parking, so on and so forth. But if we don't get the message to those potential renters, we'll have empty units.
I can speak a bit to that. Typically, when a developer constructs a new facility, they take an aggressive stance towards marketing. So that would be something where we're kind of trying to reach the developers. The developers will be the ones that invest in spreading the word to the population they're seeking to capture. So they'll be the ones that are posting, bulletins on bus stops downtown in the financial areas.
Creating their websites,
Yeah.
et cetera. When a developer, if he's invested his $20 million, it's paramount that he fills those units, and that again, which will all work. You would all work together, but they will certainly make an effort to market.
Filling the units is paramount to the success of the township itself, bringing in additional consumers, revenue.
Well, and to that point, there's also other elements of this that are not just about the development, because you want to signal, in fact, that you are, you're serious about the implementation. That means you are probably going to go after quite a few of the smaller, more achievable elements of this plan. Improving the landscaping. It would be great to apply for grants to get the bike lane built. We did, as a preliminary study, we heard, we know a strong desire and want to connect the Mount, to this area. We believe that's incredibly important. We actually had one of our transportation consultants at Stantec did a preliminary test just to see how and what impacts. And the fact is, it seems very likely with minimal impacts, which we would have to, on the next step would have to be a serious analysis. But there is funding available. So once improvements like that, improved landscaping, improved lighting, improved accessibility, and then the win, which is one or two real developments occurring, is probably enough to highlight the fact that Delhi is serious and making real progress. And we just brought up the rental amount. So, it's interesting, and we don't need to get into the details, but it's for anyone who is really interested, it's the residential analysis specifically tells us who will be here, how much they are willing to pay, which then determines how much it will cost to build, or what the building's going to earn once it's built, and you have to measure that against the cost of construction. And that's the issue that we're at right now. The rents aren't as that they're high. I mean, it's the rents are what the people are willing to pay here, and it's based on the market. Rents aren't that high in Delhi, so we have to compete with that. We have to build something that gets within that realm that renters would choose these units. That's why we do that work, because otherwise we don't know fully. So
Thank you.
One of the obvious strategies is to get the students over living on the Pike in these student housing. What meetings have you had with the Mount? What progress have you made with them? How do we get that happen? I mean, it's a great idea, but how do we actually implement that?
Well, I'll actually let either Peter or Catherine finish, in addition to just meeting with the sisters in the beginning, who all expressed absolute interest in frankly, the need for this area to be improved so that it is an attractive amenity for their students is critically important. And then again, which has been discussed often, is their need for graduate housing and frankly their desire for it to be located within this area. They would require a developer, but to me, that's a strong opportunity. We need to find the right we, working with them, need to find the right location. There have been additional meetings. I'm not sure they've occurred yet. Pete, I will put it to you with the new president. Not yet. Trying though. They are making.
It'll be 6 months or 8 months till we get a new president. So that's the void we're dealing with the Mount. We're still working. We have a board member from the Mount that is on our oversight committee. We have other representation from the Mount that's on our oversight committee. So we do have very informed people, from the board members to faculty members, that are in this process with us. But without a clear president, we have met with the interim president, and they're very excited. But it seems like there might be a gap until we get a leader. Now, the only good news is that with so many other people involved in it, once this person is appointed as president, hopefully we'll be able to get them up to speed very quickly, and hopefully they're as excited as everybody else that is, and we can start from there. Unfortunately, it did put us back a little bit because the past president was already pretty much on board and was excited about the process, partnering. So we do kind of have to start over to a degree with the president, but not with the Mount overall. They're very supportive and excited about it.
And we have met with the interim president. The CFO is also on our oversight committee. Where it stands presently, they have expressed their interest. We haven't yet laid out the exact format for any kind of financing for a deal, but what they're doing currently is they're actually circling back with all of the department heads and trying to get some figures from surveys from their students to see what the demand may be. That kind of data will help us greatly in trying to figure out a project that'll make sense for everybody.
Any other questions?
I was just going to say, typically, Cheryl talked about the bank's development. I mean, it definitely had a long-term plan. I mean, it probably was in the works for 20 years, and the park down there was a big part of that plan and getting people in there. But for that developer, they really had to have, for a housing piece, they knew how much they could rent up immediately, but there was a destination point there. So the big thing for me is, what's the destination point for Delhi other than the Mount? What is it other than our neighborhood that we live in? That's a lot of things that are missing up on the Pike. I guess for me, it's hard for me to envision that, because there's got to be, I know you talk about a development, and the development will be the destination for them, but to get that there, I've dealt with developers, and it's like, I don't know what that destination or that hook's going to be to get them to invest into us.
It's interesting. When we met with the owner of the Remke Plaza this morning, it was actually relatively new to the company, his first visit to this location, and yet he works in 9 states, and has quite a bit of experience. He was genuinely impressed with the corridor, and really, really impressed with Kroger, with Chipotle. He was one of the most optimistic people we've met with in this, planning effort. And, oftentimes it does take somebody who has an outside perspective to see, what, the amenities that you already have. And so, again, we are looking at, millennials. They are 80% of the likely target market who would move into these units. And even with what you have right there now, at the right price point, at the right quality, free parking, surface parking, and all of these we have to take into account. And likely if their students are working, down at Cincinnati and want a more suburban environment and can't afford or not interested in being right in the city, this market, this location actually has the amenities, some of the amenities that they are looking for. To all of that, you're right though, and that's why we have, creating public space, creating bike lanes, improving lighting. It has to be a more aesthetically well-designed, welcoming environment. Those are the improvements we need to make. They have to happen at the same time. And, the new investment creates new funding mechanisms to further those place-making strategies. And so they both have to happen at the same time.
And additionally, with the bank's development in similar luxury locations, the number of stories that are affordable for developers in those areas make the ability to provide luxury housing and also serve as a magnet to the individuals who are really inclined to those very dense urban environments. So it's a different environment, a built environment too. It's a lot more expensive to build that way. What we're seeking to do is really it's less luxury, more practicality, and what we're trying to do is marry the new residential to bring in the new amenities that would cater to that population and also to our existing population.
Absolutely, and I would encourage you looking at the appendix of the residential analysis, because it's always interesting to see who the very specific about 50 to 200 people are, and I forget their name, but they're suburban achievers, or it's an interesting title, but it's we're trying to figure out who, if you build the right product, who will actually come here right now.
And if I may say too, the information that we keep referring to, our website delhi.oh.us. If you simply go under departments, either departments on top or on the side, and go under economic development, if you see the strategic redevelopment plan and you simply click on it, it will bring up every presentation, every bit of information that we've done so far. And right up top tells you about the event tomorrow, but right below it, see the residential market analysis. There's the analysis, and then with the three appendix along with it. So if people, it is available to view, and it's all public information. So we encourage people and developers go look at it. Or we'll mail you a copy if you want it. But the information is available. And I will say this one thing to attract definitely our demographics clearly showed when people were leaving Delhi, then coming back, staying, raising their family, then leaving again once they got to a certain elderly spot. It is exactly that demographic that we're looking at for the housing. Make no bones about it, the retail will support, will attract and keep those people we're trying to attract, plus the current residents. We don't probably foresee that new retail that we bring in is going to cause us to be an attractor for people all over the state or anything like that, unless we really get something unique that people are willing to drive. But it will be more of a service corridor for who we already have, who's already here, the new people that just joined us. And of course, we hope that, some people from Cincinnati or, Green or from Indiana right across there, Miami Township, will come into it for, they'll be close enough to come visit us, like all of our residents go out of the township most of the time to visit various stores because we can't meet their needs. So, we're not making any bones about it that we're going to be this new destination place. No. I do think we have possibilities with blowing our own trumpet, so to speak, that we can be a destination place for our parks, and come look at Floral Paradise Gardens, and maybe there'll be a few stores that we do get that aren't necessarily everywhere, just down the road and every 2 miles, that maybe somebody will drive 20, 30 minutes to visit. But it's not going to be like we're touting Delhi as a place to be statewide, tri-state area, come visit Delhi. I doubt that's going to be our motto, but it will definitely be our local service to our residents, and should thrive on that. We have the dense population to support that, and with the new housing, that will make it even more dense. And what everybody new and old, as far as the new residents we hope to attract and the residents been here their whole life, that what they have in common is that they're both liking the walkable, the mixed-use retail. They're all liking the same kind of thing. So it's going to help attract and then help keep. And that's a big thing, to help keep.
Steve, one question. How does your plan tie into zoning? You mentioned the Remke owner talked about, department stores. That's a change that we would welcome. But what about a landowner or a developer that comes in and wants to bring something that doesn't fit our plan?
The plan document is a policy document, and from it, hopefully a detailed policy document to the point that it will make the recommendations for zoning revisions. So that is a step that we have not completed at this point. I mean, we're getting there, but again, we'll be working with Tom and others just to make sure we get this document to the point that it can fully guide revisions to your current zoning to support the plan elements and the plan recommendations. So this will be the policy document that initiates the change in zoning. And to your point about the department store and what impacts that may be, that's a whole new piece that we need to add to it, just because, again, we weren't necessarily looking at that. Our first market assessment didn't identify that. It was a great conversation this morning, because now we can take a step back. If there's a market opportunity for that, we want to make sure this plan supports it, and the zoning, and can support the zoning that would require, pushed to a certain point that we want to make sure to create the environment.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Absolutely.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. All right, next we're going to move to trustee correspondence. Trustee Seavey.
Nothing this evening.
Trustee Klug.
Nothing this evening.
I just wanted to bring up when we were talking about strategic redevelopment, and every time the Delhi Press puts out an article, they put that photo that you've all seen hundreds of times of showing the Delhi Pike, drawn picture of the streetscape. And I have more residents coming up to me asking more questions about it. And what I really like about tonight is the vision plan for 2035, and I think we really need to push that. I know we put it up on a Delhi administration, but when we talk about this redevelopment, I think that's what we need to use. I think when people look at the picture that they currently use in Delhi Press, it creates more questions about, well, how is this ever going to happen? Who's going to do this? Who's going to buy it? Who's going to build it? When's it going to occur? I think when you look at the vision plan for 2035 that was shown tonight, and you can find it on our Facebook page, a picture says 1,000 words. And you can look at that and you can see economic development doesn't happen overnight. I mean, this is a 20-year plan. People say, well, how did Green Township get graders and First Watch and that whole new Harrison Green? They had started this 10 or 15 years ago. This didn't happen overnight where Dewey's wanted to move into Green. They had the plan to develop Harrison long ago. We're just starting this process. And what I like about the vision plan is it shows this is a 5, 10-year, 15, 20-year plan. You're not going to see something next summer. It takes time to get all these ducks in a row. Green has done it already. They're way ahead of us. So I don't know if we want to print some of these that we can hand out or email all the local organizations so they can start. And I think all you have to do is look at that picture and it answers so many more questions than the current photo that's being put up there. And I think people are becoming more pessimistic about this whole thing when they see that photo because they don't understand it. They don't understand when it's going to happen. And so that's my one thing. I've dealt with a lot of comments from residents answering. I'm saying, look, we have a vision plan, and this lays it out. So I think if we can really show that more. And ultimately, I mean, we know it. We don't have long-term revenue at this point. We have no JEDs. We have the state tax we lost. we have one of two choices. We do nothing, become Price Hill, or we make positive steps and become Green Township. It's that simple. And that's what we're doing. And hopefully we can become like a Green Township, and that's what we need to do. So I don't know how we want to get out there, the website, maybe make it more visible so people can really see this is a 20-year plan. This is not going to happen in 12 months, and it's going to be a whole new project. I mean, even like you said with the banks, I mean, 20-year plan. And it took 10 years just to figure out what was going to go there, you know? So
6 iterations.
so that's all. I guess I've had a lot of comments from residents. That's my thoughts on it, to get more education about this plan and the timeline.
Maybe the press needs to have a new picture that says replace his previous photo. They tend to hang on to the same one and run it
Very
over and over and over again.
And that picture wasn't even.
It was what it could
It was
look
an
like when
artist
they didn't know
rendering.
anything. Right.
No, it wasn't even that. It wasn't artist rendering, but it was of another area. It was a concept, so it wasn't even an artist rendering of Delhi at
Right.
all. It was just a conceptual drawing of this could
Someplace.
be anywhere. Now there are 2 new pictures, sketches, which he showed tonight, that are of actual. Here's going down Delhi Pike. Here's the where the warehouse location. But we'll get this stuff now that we have some of the things and visioning and
And maybe
20-year
even a
plan.
press release, so then everyone has it and they want to put it
Absolutely.
up, because that first picture is just killing us.
Yeah.
I know it was intended for, but now it's
It was an attempt to get conversations, and then the press took
It
it,
did.
and used it every time for it. So they liked the picture, I guess. But I get your point, definitely.
all right. That's all I have for tonight. Report from fiscal officer.
Tonight we have Andy Marks from the Financial Advisory Board to discuss the mid-year department reviews.
Well, good evening. Pete and Jim asked me to give a quick update on the FAB. So as a reminder, the FAB is 7 volunteers that assist with the department budget reviews and fiscal affairs within the township. So one of the most important duties that we do is we meet quarterly with the department heads. We break up into sub-teams or subcommittees of 2 or 3 people. So we just completed the mid-year budget reviews, and the good news is that the department heads are all, I would say, immersed in their budgets. They have their arms around their numbers. We don't go over things line by line, but we look at major variances. And there's also some discussion about what's next year look like and long-term budgeting. So we completed that process last month, and we'll be actively involved in October and beyond that, helping with the 2016 budgets. So that's really it. Any questions?
Thank
you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Next, we'll move to report from departments, and we'll bring up Parks Director Josh Torbeck.
Thank you, trustees. I just wanted to address a situation that happened over the weekend. As many of you may know, Floral Paradise Gardens had a little vandalism at the greenhouse. Thankfully, nothing major was done. It was a lot of plant material, flowers, bushes. I think it upset some of the staff a little bit, but there was really a silver lining that came out of it. Monday morning, we had a couple of news teams came out, and I think they expected to see chaos, and when they got there, everything was clean, and they had this look of disappointment on their face of, where's all this destruction? And that's kind of what I wanted to address was just the outpouring of support, volunteers, staff. Even one of our trustees came out and got her hands dirty. It was amazing to see volunteers that we see normally week to week, but we also saw faces we've never seen before. And I just want to take the moment to thank them and everybody else who came out and supported us.
And it was about $600 damage, you said?
Originally, we estimated 600, but because of how quickly people responded, we got things replanted, taken care of. So I think it was probably closer to $100.
Okay,
Wow.
good.
That's,
Any questions?
I'll tell you what, it was a mess. And I think the heartbreaking part was this is all seedlings that they grow in the greenhouse to actually put out in the gardens. So it was like the next generation of what went into the garden was what was getting thrown around. But, the volunteer group up there is dedicated, and they really did an unbelievable job.
Yeah, the seeds were actually sorted over the winter and then grown, from seeds to the plants. that would have been planted and still will be planted probably next spring. So
Yeah.
it was a good thing.
Thank you. Next, we'll do reading of the resolutions. Mr. Luby.
Resolution 2015-147, resolution approving purchase order obligations incurred on behalf of the township by the township administrator, authorizing payment of certain purchase order obligations and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-148, resolution budgeting and amending revenues, making appropriations for expenses in various funds, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Landrum.
Yes, changes in the budget include estimated revenues in the park budget of $7,000. That is the donations that were received from the spray ground. So that's estimating $7,000. Then when you get to the expense side of it, you have to appropriate the expense side. So same amount, $7,000 on the expense side for the park budget for the water and sewer bill. Also on the expense side, this has to do with a resolution you're getting ready to come before you. I guess I can kind of explain this part. The sidewalks. There is a change order number 1 to the sidewalk replacement project for 2015. Additional $14,407.50. Additional for the total of it's $75,000 plus the 84. So I think it's $94,407.50 is the total in the sidewalk assessments. But we only budgeted 75, so we're having to appropriate additional $14,407.50. Keep in mind that the sidewalk replacement is reimbursed through homeowner payments and tax assessments. That's all the changes in budget.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-149, resolution approving change order number 1 to the contract with Adlita Inc. for the Delhi Township Rehabilitation and Repair Project, 2015A, and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Rippinger.
Thank you, trustees. This is an increase in quantity due to a clerical issue from our spreadsheets to the final contract. We were able to work with the contractor to resolve this through a change order. The total quantity did lower the unit price at the end of the day, so it should work out good.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-150, resolution entering into a renewal agreement with Dental Care Plus for the provision of group dental insurance benefits for eligible township employees and officers, authorizing the township administrator to execute such agreement and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Landrum.
Yes, we are recommending, staff is recommending renewal to go ahead. This is 0% increase. Anytime we can get a 0, we'll take it for our dental program for dental renewal.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-151, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 4712 Fair Road and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint of excessive vegetation at this vacant property, issued order letters with no compliance. Upon our inspection this morning, the vegetation still exists, so we're requesting your board declare this property a nuisance so we can address this violation with our nuisance procedure.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-152, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 4833 Fair Road and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint on this vacant property of excessive vegetation, issued order letters with no compliance, inspected the property today, it still exists, so we're requesting that your board declares this property a nuisance so we can address this violation with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-153, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 328 Bob Drive and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint on this occupied property of excessive vegetation. We issued an order letter with no compliance. We inspected the property this morning. The violation still persists. So requesting that your board declare this property a nuisance so we can address this violation with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-154, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 5321 Plum Ridge Drive and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the resolution.
Any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We've received a complaint at this occupied property of excessive vegetation and debris. We issued an order letter with no compliance. We inspected the property today. It's still the same. So we're requesting your board declare this property a nuisance. So
I
we can
move to
addre-
dispense with second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-155, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 455 Wilkie Drive and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
And
Second the
dis-
adoption.
Any discussion? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint at this vacant property of debris and vegetation. We issued order letters with no compliance. We inspected the property today. It's still the same. So we request your board declare this property a nuisance so we can address these violations with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-156, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 5190 Rapid Run Road and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion? Mr. Roach.
Yeah, we received a complaint of this property of debris, and we should informal order with no compliance. It's an occupied property, and that household garbage has been there for about 3 weeks. With no compliance, so we inspected the property today, it's still there. So we're requesting your board declares property a nuisance so we can address this violation with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with the second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-157, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation and accumulated debris at 578 Pedretti Road and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint of this occupied property of some debris and excessive vegetation. We should order letters with no compliance. Upon our inspection today, the violations still persist. So we're requesting your board declares property a nuisance so we can address these violations with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-158, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 223 Hollidan Hill Lane and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion? Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint of this vacant property of excessive vegetation. Issued an order letter with no compliance. We inspected the property today. It's still there. So we're requesting your board declare this property a nuisance so we can address this violation with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-159, resolution declaring nuisance for excessive vegetation at 384 Bob Drive and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion, Mr. Roach?
Thank you, Trustee Oswald. We received a complaint this vacant property of excessive vegetation, issued an order letter of no compliance, inspected the property today, it's still the same, so we're requesting your board declare this property a nuisance so we can address this violation with our nuisance procedures.
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with second reading?
Yes.
Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Resolution 2015-160, resolution entering into agreement with Thielen Associates, Inc. for geotechnical exploration of the proposed fire station facility to be located at 440 Greenwell Avenue and dispensing with the second reading.
I introduce and move the adoption of this resolution.
Second the adoption.
Any discussion on this resolution?
I move to dispense with the second reading.
Second the motion to dispense with second reading.
All those in favor of the motion to dispense with the second reading?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luby, please call roll.
Mr. Oswald?
Yes.
Mrs. Seavey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klug?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Next, we have citizen comments. We do have one pink sheet tonight. Russ Rosie wants to talk about the senior auction.
I have to put my glasses on. We got the Delhi Senior Auction coming up this Sunday, August the 30th, from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And we have over 180 items, baskets and gifts, which is a bid and buy sale, which you can bid on it. You also can go to the bottom of the sheet and buy it immediately, so you don't have to fight over it. So if you want to buy it, you can buy it. This is to raise money for the seniors because of we got the rent fee of $6,000 a year, and we got $5,000 to pay for bus services, is $11,000 a year. We have 500 seniors. The fee for a senior to belong to the center is only $10 a year. So you can see we don't have enough money to pay for all this. So this is our 8th auction to raise money to pay for this. We have over 30 live all auction. We have a grandfather clock. We have a gift tree with $125 coupons from the restaurants in Delhi. We got a treasure chest with money in it. We got a mystery trip for 2 people. We got 4 tickets to the Reds with a parking pass. We got 4 UC football tickets and 4 UC basketball tickets. So this is on August the 30th. It's from 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, 847 Neeb Road. And I hope you all come. And if you want any more information or somebody want to make small donations, call me at 347-9433.
And it's 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I
1
think you
o'clock
said
to
7.
5. Did I say 7?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Vicky's telling me 5.
And Vicky, my wife, and I put all the baskets together, 180 baskets.
She does a
That's
great
a lot
job.
of work.
Yay, Vic.
Thank you. Next, we have announcement of community events. Mr. Luby.
Thank you, Russ, for taking care of the senior auction announcement. We also have the Delhi Branch Library, Honey Hill Farm Petting Zoo. It will be Saturday, September 5th, 2015, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It will be at the Delhi Branch Library at 5095 Foley Road. We have the Delhi Township Parks and Recreation Department Delhi Fish Fest. Will be Saturday, September 26, 2015, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Clearview Lake at Delhi Park. That's it.
Thank you. There's no need for executive session. Trustee Seavey.
Yeah, I move that with no further business be brought before the board that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Yes.
Yes.
The next regularly scheduled Delhi Township Board of Trustees meeting will be Wednesday, September 9th, 2015. Everyone have a good night.